Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this tutorial, we'll be learning how to make this beautiful shift dress with built-up neckline and bell sleeves. This dress also has loops at the back, which is used to snatch the dress beautifully, as you can see it on your screen. If this is like something you're interested in, keep on watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure you hit on your subscribe button. With that being said, let's dive right into this. These are the fabrics I'll be using during the course of this tutorial. First, with me here, I have this crepe fabric, about 1.5 yard. This has little stretch to it. And then I have this beautiful pattern crepe here, also 1.5 yards. This crepe is so fine. Now let's go ahead and cut out the style of our dress. We'll be doing this directly on our fabric because this is actually quite easy to cut. So the first thing we are going to do is to fold our fabric into two, just like I'm doing here. And then further fold it into two again. This is because we'll be cutting both the front and the back together. Okay, so after folding that, this is what you should have. You'll be ruling a straight line from the top of your fabric here. Now this line is going to serve as your starting line, which is also your shoulder line. We'll be taking all our measurements from this point here, which is the center, and the first thing we'll be marking here is going to be our neck width. We'll be using a neck width of 3 inches, and from that point you'll be coming down with a neck depth of 1.5 inch. Go ahead and connect these 2 points together with a curve to get your neckline. Also on this line here, you'll be marking half of your shoulder measurement. Mine is 7.5 inch. And from that point, you're going to come down by 1 inch for your shoulder slope and connect it back into the neck width like this. The next point you'll be marking is your chest line. I'll be leaving a formula on the screen on how to go about calculating yours. So make sure you mark that from the shoulder slope downwards. Mine is 8.2 inches. And from that point, connect a straight line to the side just like this. The next point you'll mark is going to be from your shoulder to your bust point. Mine is 11.5 inches. I'm just going to mark that across and connect with a straight line. Next, you'll be marking your shoulder to your waistline. Mine is 17 inches. After that, you'll be marking your waistline to your hip measurement. Just place your tape there at the waistline like I'm doing and mark that. Mine is 8.5 inches. The last point you'll be marking here is your full dress length. So place your tape there at the shoulder line and mark your shoulder to your full dress length. I'll be using 35 inches, and then I'm going to add extra 1 inch for hemming allowance, and that will be 36 inches. Now that we have all our lines, to go over these again, this is the shoulder line, chest line here, bust point, waistline, hip line, and the length of our dress. Coming here to your chest line, you are also going to mark half of your shoulder measurement. This is to enable you to get a straight line into the shoulder slope like this. To get the armhole curve, you are going to divide what you have from your shoulder slope to your chest line by 2. Mark the midpoint here. Coming from that point by 0.5 inch. Now on the chest line, you are going to mark quarter of your bust measurement, which is your bust divided by 4. Mine is 10 inches. Now for a shift dress, it is not exactly fitted on the body. For this reason, we are going to be adding extra inch for ease. So I'll be adding extra 1 inch here, which means I'm marking this at 11 inches. So I'll be connecting this point, and this point together to get my armhole curve. Also, don't forget to add your stitching allowance. I'll be using a stitching allowance of 1 inch. We'll not be marking anything on the bust point because what we have on the chest line is exactly the same thing we are going to mark on the bust point. So let's move to the waistline. On the waistline also, you are going to mark quarter of your waist measurement, 1 inch for ease and 1 inch for stitching allowance. Hip line, you'll mark quarter of your hip measurement, 1 inch for ease and 1 inch for stitching allowance. Coming to the length here, you are going to mark exactly the same thing you have on your hip line. The only difference here is you're going to add extra 1 or 1.5 inch. This is because coming towards the length of the dress, it has this A-shaped look. So this is going to give it that look. Go ahead and connect all these points together just like I'm doing here. Now another thing I like to do on my shift dress, especially for the ones that has loops and we end up being snatched at the back, I like to add extra 1 inch to the waistline. Okay, this is going to make the waistline a little bit free, and since there are loops, it's going to make sense that it's a little bit free around the waistline. And that is pretty much it. We are going to go ahead and cut this out. Now while cutting this out, make sure you add ½ inch to the neckline and 0.2 inch to the shoulder line. After cutting this out, we are going to go ahead and take out one, and the one we are taking out is going to be for the back. Now for the front, we are going to cut it out following the neck width all the way to the length of the dress. To do this, I'm just going to mark my neck width all the way to the length of my dress. This is just to enable me to cut through a straight line. This part we just cut out is going to be replaced with a black crepe. So yeah, this is what you should have. The next thing we are going to do here is to join the front and the back at the shoulders. So I'm just going to place the back like this and place the front on it just like this. I'll pin it down at the shoulders and we'll be stitching this down using ½ inch stitching allowance. So after stitching it down at the shoulders, you can go ahead and trim off the excess just like I'm doing here. The next thing you will be doing is to insert our sleeves, and to do that we are going to take the measurement of what we have around the armhole here. Taking the measurement of what I have on mine, I have 11 inches. Now to cut this out, I already went ahead to put my fabric on fold, so I'm just going to explain this. I folded my fabric into 2 first, as you can see here, and then further folded it into 2 again. This is because we are cutting the both sleeves together. You'll be taking all your measurements from this point here, because here is going to be the center of our sleeve. Now the first thing you have to do is to rule a starting line at the top here, and from that point you're going to mark your bicep line. So we'll be using 4.5 inches. Connect this with a straight line. On this line here, you're going to mark what you measured around your armhole. Mine is 11 inches. You'll be connecting a straight line from that point into the center just like this. Divide what you have on this line by 2. Mark the midpoint, and from this midpoint here you're going to create a curve upward like this, and also from that midpoint you're going to create a curve downward like this. You are going to take the measurements of what you have around this curve you just created to be sure it's exactly what you have on the armhole you measured, so it fits perfectly. So taking the measurement from here, you can see that I have 12 inches and what I measured was 11 inches. So to get this accurately, I'm just going to put the 11 inches from this center here and measure it to the other side of the sleeve. So this is the point where it stops. I'm just going to go out a little bit more and mark it. So this is the new point we are using now. The next thing you're going to do is to mark the length of your sleeve. Mine is 28 inches. So you just connect from what you have here on your bicep line to the length of the sleeve slantly, because you're creating a bell sleeve. So you're just going to connect a line from this point slantly to the end like this. So this is how easy it is to create a bell sleeve. Okay, I'll just be cutting out this end here. Curve out the ends like this so you don't have your sleeve looking sharp. Then go ahead and cut out the rest of the sleeve, making sure you add 0.5 inch around this curve here. Also notch the midpoint of your sleeve. So that is it. We'll be connecting the sleeve back to the armhole. So this is my armhole here. Make sure you open it up like this, and then you're going to bring in your sleeve and make sure that the notch point on your sleeve is on the shoulder joining of the armhole. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this down all the way to this side. I'll just pin it down all the way to the other side of camera. So you can see that I've done that, and you will notice that the sleeve and the armhole on the dress, you can see it's the same. That's why it's important you measure what you have around your curve and make sure it's the same thing with what you measured on the armhole of your dress. All right, now what you need to do is to stitch this down using 1/2 inch stitching allowance, and you do the same thing to the other side of your sleeve. After stitching down the sleeve, you can see how it came out. Next thing we are going to do is to close this at the side. So we are just going to turn this to the wrong side like this. First of all, you are going to pin this down. Starting from this point here, make sure you arrange it properly like I'm doing here. Pin it down. Also make sure the waist points are together. Pin it down and pin down the rest of the dress. Go ahead and pin down the other side of the dress. So after pinning it down, this is what we have. Now before we go ahead and close it up at the side, we are going to insert our loops. Now the point of snatching is around the waistline, so you need to make a mark around this waistline here. Okay, and then from this waistline you'll be going up by about 2 inches. You can also use 1.5 inch, and you come down by 1.5 inch. You can do 1.5 inch up, 1.5 inch down. Okay, that one also is perfectly okay. Now I have this rope that I already created. I'll be using for my loops. Now to do this is quite easy. I have this piece of fabric which is about 1.25 inch. All you need to do is to fold it in like this and fold it in from the other side like this. Then proceed to fold it into 2 and stitch it down all the way to the end. That's how to create this. Now for how long I want my loops to be, I'll be using a loop length of 3 inches. So I'm going to cut out 3 inches, and I'll be cutting out about 6 pieces of this because I have 3 on this side, 3 on the other side, which is 6. Now to insert these loops, all you need to do is just to fold them like this. You can see how I am doing it. Okay, just watch what I'm doing to know how to go about yours. And then you are going to put it in between this point here. Pin it down. I'll repeat the same thing for the other one just so you can get it clearly. We'll be doing the same thing for the last one too. So this is what you are going to do, and then you are going to stitch it down using your stitching allowance from the sleeve all the way to the length of the dress. Now another thing I would like you to take note of is these loops here. How big it looks on the other side or how wide the loophole is depends on how big you want your belt to be, because I don't think it makes sense that you have a very tiny rope and then your loopholes are very big. It makes no sense. If you want to use a bigger belt, because I used a bigger belt, the loopholes should be as big as mine. But if you don't want to use a bigger belt, you can push the loops back inwards to the other side. That way the loophole is smaller on the right side. I hope this makes sense. After stitching it down, you can see how beautiful this came out, and you can see how the loops are on the both sides. The next thing we are going to do here to insert our built up neckline, you will be taking the measurement of what you have around this point here. That's a total of 82 inches. So I'm going to cut out my fabric using that length. So you can see I've gone ahead to cut it out, and what I have here is actually unfold. Opening it up, you can see how it is. Make sure you give it a good press, because you can see my ghetto line here. This midpoint is going to serve as a guide for you. Now unfold, what I have here is 3.5 inches. Remember that what we cut out from the front of our dress was 3 inches using the neck width. Now this extra ½ inch is going to be for the stitching allowance back to the dress. Okay, so opening it up, what I have here is 7 inches. Now what you are going to do is to fold this into 2 like this. You can see that I even have joinings here just to make it long enough. Make sure that it's right sides facing each other. Now what you need to do is to mark how deep you want your neckline to be. I'm using 12 inches, so this point I marked here. So from this point you're going to stitch it down all the way to the length of your fabric, and after stitching it down you're going to open it up like this, and voila, this is how to go about the making of the neckline. For those of you that don't understand how I just opened it, I'm going to fold it back again and open it again. So yeah, this is how to go about creating that neckline. Now we're going to be attaching this back to the dress, and to do that, make sure you notch the midpoint at the back of your neckline, just the way I'm doing here. And then you also be notching the midpoint on this part. Go ahead and place them right sides facing each other like this, and then pin it down all around just like I'm doing here. After pinning it down, you can see what I have here. What you'll be doing next is to stitch it down starting from one notch point all the way to the end, and then from the notch point all the way to the other end using 0.5 inch stitching allowance. After stitching it down, you can see how beautiful this came out. You can see here that I've hemmed the bottom part of my dress. I've gone ahead to hem my sleeves, and I've given this a really good press. I've also gone ahead to create the belt, which I'll be using to snatch the waistline. And that is it for this tutorial, guys. This is how to go about the making of this shape dress with built up neckline and bell sleeves. I hope this tutorial was really helpful. Please do let me know in the comment section. If you have any questions, you can also leave it there. Also, make sure you subscribe to this channel, share this to family and friends who you think will need this. I'll be seeing you guys in my next tutorial.